All right, guys, I'm going to kind of throw maybe a term at you and maybe talk about the term and whether it fits with Jefferson basketball, either back in the day when you guys were covering those Jefferson teams, or just through the 50 years of the program and Jack Evans and now Jeff Evans. Talk about the aura of Jefferson basketball.
Well, it's kind of when you're a baseball team and you have to face the Yankees. You always knew you're up against something special. So the aura of Jefferson basketball, no matter where they played or who they played, there was an aura of sort of like playing the Yankees, to equate the two. You just knew they were going to be good. You're not going to have an easy time of it. So I would say an aura of just difficult to beat.
I'd probably say consistency. They were so well coached that if you were an opposing team, you might beat them, but you're not going to intimidate them, and you always, I think, as an opponent, probably played with pressure, because if you made a mistake, Jefferson was so well coached, they were going to capitalize on that mistake. So I think just consistency. They were consistently hard to beat.
Talk about, did they always appear like a team that was prepared?
Always, always. Like I said in the 82 game that I did the play-by-play on, they looked like a bunch of surgeons out there doing their job. It was a surgical job they had pulled off on Duluth East and most of their opponents.
I would say absolutely, and the thing that I remember most from the tournaments is at halftime they could always adjust. Like we talked about in the opening game against North, 18 turnovers at halftime, and that was the end of that. They won the game. Against Duluth East, out-rebounded 24-12, and then third quarter they come out and shut down Duda. He didn't get a point. I mean, just always prepared and coached. And to me, going along with that is being able to make these adjustments at halftime. A lot of coaches just can't do that.
Yeah, I was just thinking something about the 82 championship team is in the first round you have to play probably the quickest team in the state, and you beat them by 10. And then in the state championship game you play probably the biggest team in the state, and you beat them by almost 10. And in the middle you got St. Cloud Tech, who played Jefferson about as tough as anybody that entire
3 points.
That was a good team, and that was a very similar team, in my opinion, to how Jefferson played, and they handled them too. So pretty good performance. Okay, how about in a environment today in high school sports and high school basketball, the open enrollment and kids moving all around the place all the time. Talk about the Jefferson commitment to community and commitment to Jefferson kids. You win or you lose, and sometimes you don't have great teams. I mean, every program has struggles at times, including Jefferson. But talk about Jack and Jeff's commitment to the kids in Bloomington. You win or lose with Jefferson kids.
Well, they always had, at least from the time I got here in 1971, a very good youth program. And watch those little guys get better and better and better. So they had a supply of good players coming up. They didn't have to recruit, as some schools do, and I have never really thought very much of that practice, recruiting, especially private schools, who can offer a dad a job in the school district, and next thing you know, his kid is playing for that basketball team. So they established a program with homegrown talent. But I think it was through really Jack's system and having this wonderful youth program.
I've never been a really big fan, and we didn't have that in my day of the open enrollment. And I think in sports today, almost at every level, if you're a fan, you really just kind of root for the jersey, because, I mean, all of a sudden your favorite next year might be playing for your biggest rival. And I think the loyalty they show, I'm speculating a little bit, but it's got to inspire kids in the school district, because they know that, as Tom mentioned with his son Tommy, that you're more than likely going to be able to play with the same kids you played with in your driveway growing up. And I think that just inspires them want to play for Jefferson. And a lot of high schools today, I just, I don't think that's there anymore.
Okay, and now let's talk about, I'll just throw a couple terms at you guys and tell me if you think this fits with Jefferson basketball. Is family, togetherness, teamwork.
It all fits. It's like a puzzle that fits together perfectly. I mean, it's a really unusual situation. You don't find that very often, but I think those are three good words that it's like putting puzzles into where they belong.
I mean, I would echo that, but I would certainly defer to you two because my real only exposure was during the 82 tournament. But I mean, just the fact you're doing this would echo that.
Right, exactly. Last one for both you guys. Just talk about the success of the program. I mean, from 1975 to 1987, 12 years, playing in the toughest conference in the state, coming out of the toughest section in the state. Over half the time during that stretch of 12 years, you're getting to the state tournament. You don't win it every year, but you're getting there. But 4 state championships, a third place finish, a consolation finish. I mean, that's success right there. So success and the Jefferson basketball.
But when you're on the other team and you're looking down at that Columbia blue, you know you have a game or a fight on your hands. I don't care what time of the season, when it's going to be. If I would have had to play against Jefferson, I would have been scared to death because I think they certainly would have outplayed me. But I think consistency, and that Columbia blue was magic. It really was.
Hey, it's the old adage, Kevin, success breeds success. And like you say, every program is cyclical. You're going to have some down years. But I would guess as an opposing team player or coach, if you're playing Jefferson, you got to bring your A game, because if you make a mistake, they're going to capitalize it. Now I've got to ask one question. In my career, I used to get to ask the questions, and I've.
How am I doing, by the way?
Yeah, great.
Kevin, I created.
National TV.
I helped to create a monster here.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, obviously we're talking about the 82 tournament championship team, but your brother John starred on that team, and I remember certainly in the North game, we didn't really talk about it, but your brother Tim got some really key rebounds in that game and some key baskets. But I've always wondered, wanted to turn around and ask you, when your two championship teams, how much internal pressure did you feel knowing that, and your dad was an assistant coach, knowing that your brothers had a state championship and had a banner hanging in this gym? How much pressure was on you, not from the game, but just internally, family-wise?
I think the best way to answer that is, for me, it's like I don't ever remember feeling pressured. But you're a teenage boy. You're 16, 17, 18 years old. You love to play. You're around your friends. Obviously I was the 82 team's biggest fan when John was a senior, and 83 when Tim was a senior. I don't remember feeling pressure because you're so young, you don't even know what it is. So you're just out there playing. So
I would like to have been there when you guys were playing in your backyard. I imagine you had some pretty good games.
Yeah, I tell
Or in
you
your
what,
driveway.
that really helped me is the fact that my oldest brother Mike is 7 years older, John is 5 years older, and Tim is 3.5 years older. So I was constantly, when I was a kid, my brothers, a lot of young kids that were my age, my brothers weren't even played with them. But since I was their younger brother, I got into games with them and their friends in the driveway, and I'd get elbowed, and I'd go into the house crying, My mom was great. It's like, a lot of moms nowadays would be like, "Oh, Kevin, you're, oh, little baby, here, let me kiss." My mom was like, "You're fine, just toughen up. If you don't like it, don't play with it." That she'd react that way. But I don't remember feeling pressure. It was just fun. It's where I wanted to be. I cared so much, but I think a big part of that is just the fact that I was young. I just didn't know what it was.
One of the really thrills of my life was to be able to cover high school basketball, and I think the greatest programs I've ever seen is Collinsville, Illinois, under Coach Virgil Fletcher. They won like 4 or 5 Illinois state championships. They did it through defense, basically, and then. You're going to laugh at this. A little town called Puxico, Missouri, back in the 50s. They lost one game during their 4 years in varsity ball and produced 4 major college All-Americans. Win Wilfong, who went on to Missouri and the NBA, Forrest and Kirby Arnold, who were All-Americans at Memphis State, and Grady Smith, who was an All-American at St. Louis University. That may have been the best all-around program, but it was a little country town, Puxico, Missouri. The gym was open all year long. They played all year long, and that's why they were that good. I saw the one game that I saw the day they lost. I was there. I saw it against John Burroughs. And then Jefferson High School here in Minnesota, Collinsville, Illinois, and Puxico. And of course, I did the Illinois tournament for years. The thing about Illinois that always got me, because the basketball was all down in southern Illinois, Pinckneyville, Benton. I mean, it was just really a thrill doing those games. But Illinois has the weirdest names for their teams. The Effingham Flaming Hearts. Let's see, I'm trying to think. Are you ready for this?
Let's have it.
He lost me after the Effingham. I was like, uh-oh.
The Pekin Chinks, they had to change the name. The Pekin Chinks, believe that or not. And then, of course, you had the Collinsville K-Hawks, the Freeport Pretzels. So I got to give Illinois the championship for weird names.
Here's my last comment about it, and you bringing that up, Tom, it reminds me of what I'm doing now with the state tournament. It's amazing, especially small schools that come down here, people how detailed they get with how you pronounce this player's name, or you call Cretin instead of Cretin Durham Hall. You'll hear about it.
Oh yeah.
Or
no.
you call a guy J.P. McCurra. I was calling J.P. McCurra for Lakeville North, and apparently, within minutes, my producer had gotten something from somebody on
Absolutely.
Instagram. He's not pronouncing it's McCurra. It's like these little. So you must have, both of you guys must have got a little bit of criticism for missing this player's name or mispronouncing or...
Actually, I don't know if we mispronounced. Remember, in '82, social media wasn't what it is today,
Well,
so no, we didn't.
It didn't
At
exist.
times, since you guys are broadcasting up top,
They couldn't get to us.
yeah, well, but you got to look down. You're pretty far away from the action, so sometimes you're going to miss names. I guess that.
This is what you do, Kevin, before each game, and I'm sure you know that. You go down, you talk to the coaches and the players. How do you pronounce your name? When I was doing sports for NBC in Cleveland, we had Coach Sam Ritigliano. I got more Italians in Cleveland saying, it's Ritigliano. It might be that in Italy, but Mr. Ritigliano wants it pronounced Ritigliano. You ask the player, how do you pronounce your name? I might have had a few mistakes once in a while, but I did learn because I broke into radio with Skip Carey, Harry Carey's son, who was a polished announcer as a very young one that went on to do the Atlanta Braves games for 32 years. But you always ask, how do you want your name pronounced? How is it pronounced? And I don't recall being called out very much at all in 36 years, maybe 4 or 5 times. And if I was called out, then it's my fault because I was too lazy to go down and ask them, how do you pronounce your name?
And what I did, after the first segment where I found out I was going to be on throughout the tournament, I would go down and as I filled out the stat sheet, I would write everyone's name, unless it was Smith or Jones or Craig. I just did it phonetically. I didn't care about the spelling. I would say, how's it pronounced? And then, I would use like long E or a short E or whatever. So I wrote names down phonetically. But again, social media not being, if we were butchering someone's name, they had no one to get to.
Literally within 5 minutes, I've heard how I'm pronouncing the school's name. Like I said, if you say Cretin instead of Cretin
They always want
Hall,
the,
then you hear
or
about it.
Beneld St. Margaret's. You always have to have
What
it
I
right.
do is I'll just use nicknames. So the Raiders.
Yeah.
And then you're safe. there.
Sure.
But
Barry Zavan, the weatherman, when I first worked with him in the early 70s, had one of the greatest mispronunciations, but it was planned. He goes on the air one night and he says, and the weather at Cockatoo is going to be very warm tomorrow. The phone rang off the hook. He goes on the air the next night, he says, well, I wasn't far off because Cokato, as I called it, Cockatoo, is near Bird Island. And I swear to this day that Barry planned that.
I remember that guy.